Ever feel like you're just swimming in information, but really getting the important stuff feels like running a marathon?
Yeah, totally. Information overload is real.
That's exactly the space the deep dive tries to carve out for you. We wade through all the noise, the research, everything really to pull out those core insights.
Those aha moments.
Exactly. The stuff that makes you feel genuinely clued in and maybe, even a little surprised sometimes.
And today, we are diving deep into a really fascinating place down in Land O'Lakes, Florida. It's the Rosebud Continuum Eco-Science Center.
Mm-hmm.
We've got some great material, YouTube clips, website info that really gives you a picture of their, well, kind of groundbreaking work in sustainability.
Yeah, exactly. What's so great about these sources is they give you this real tangible look at how one group is tackling some pretty big environmental
And
challenges.
how they're involving the community, which is key.
Totally key. Okay, so wow, where do we even start with all this innovation they've got going on?
Well, first off, it's situated on about 14 acres of preserved land. And right away, you kind of get the sense this isn't your average environmental center.
How so?
Someone described it as a large sustainability classroom. And honestly, that just hits the nail on the head. That's its purpose.
Okay, a classroom.
Yeah,
And it was founded by Marianne and Sonny Bishop.
that's right. And they partnered up with the USF Patel College of Global Sustainability.
And there's a story behind the name Rosebud, isn't there?
Yeah, it's a really nice touch. It's named after the Rosebud Indian Reservation in South Dakota. That's where Sonny Bishop grew up.
Ah, okay. So what's their main goal? Their mission?
It's pretty powerful, actually. It's not just about coming up with sustainable, earth-friendly practices, but also critically educating people about them.
Right, the education
And
piece.
they operate as a nonprofit. Their work is driven by this core idea, this philosophy that really jumped out at me. There is no such thing as waste.
Wow, that's a big statement. That really flips things on their head, doesn't it?
It does. They even have this other saying, uh, pollution is the right thing at the wrong place at the wrong time, in the wrong concentration, and nothing more.
Huh. So it really forces you to rethink what we usually just call trash or pollution.
Exactly.
So how does that no waste idea actually, play out in what they do? What are the projects?
Well, what's really interesting is how they blend sort of ancestral knowledge, traditional ways, with modern experimental science to make that philosophy real.
Okay, old meets new.
You see that mix in a lot of their different initiatives. And they're really active in sharing what they learn, offering like edu trips and eco tours for all sorts of groups.
And if you're local, you can actually get involved, right? They have Saturday volunteer days.
Yeah, focusing on really practical stuff, composting, gardening, aquaponics, even working with these things called biodigesters.
Sounds like a great way to, get your hands dirty and actually learn by doing.
Definitely. And for people just visiting, this is pretty cool. They have augmented reality built into their signs.
Augmented reality, how does that work?
They use something called Zappar codes. So you scan these codes on the signs with your phone, and it pops up like extra videos or information about the project you're looking at.
That's smart. Makes it really interactive.
Yeah. And their website, rosebudcontinuum.com, has more info. Plus, they seem really open to tours if you just shoot them an email.
Good to know. Okay, so let's talk about how they put that no waste idea into action with recycling. Plastic is a huge one, obviously.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they are serious about it. They have 4 different machines just for processing various plastics.
4. Wow.
Yeah, which is quite the setup. It's possible because of donations and that partnership they have with USF.
So having 4 machines, does that let them handle stuff that normal recycling centers can't?
That's a great point. Yeah, it gives them the ability to process a much wider range of plastics, maybe things that are harder to recycle or less economically viable for the big plans.
Like a specialized toolkit for plastic?
Exactly. And 2 of the big ones, a single-axis and a double-axis shredder, were actually donated by the Elizabeth Moore Foundation through this platform called Precious Plastic.
So collaboration is a big part of it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
They also have a shredder crusher granulator, which sounds intense, for breaking things down even smaller.
Okay. And it's not just plastic they're focused on, is it?
I don't-
What
I
about glass?
Right. They tackle glass, too. They have a glass crusher machine.
What does that do? Just smash it?
It basically grinds it down, turns discarded glass back into sand. But here's the key. It's sand that's safe to touch.
Wow, okay. Sand. What do they do with the sand?
It becomes a resource. They use it in other projects. That machine was also a donation, by the way.
It seems like they have good community support.
They do, which leads us nicely into one of their most visually striking projects, Trashcrete.
Trashcrete. Okay, sounds like what it is.
Pretty much. It's led by Dr. Thomas Henry Kilfane. They mix that shredded plastic we talked about and the crushed glass sand with cement.
And they make things.
Yeah, useful things. And also art. They've created these amazing statues of Florida wildlife, a gopher tortoise, a black bear, a Florida panther, all made from trashcrete.
So turning waste into art that represents local nature, that's clever.
It's a really powerful way to show the no waste idea in action.
Uh-huh.
Plus, they're looking into using it for practical stuff too, like paving stones or maybe non-load-bearing walls.
And I read somewhere that one turtle sculpture has, like, years worth of plastic and glass inside it.
Get this, 6 years worth.
Yeah.
Inside one sculpture.
Whoa! That really puts the volume of waste into perspective, doesn't it, and what they're diverting.
Absolutely. Okay, should we shift gears to composting, another huge area for them?
Yeah, let's do it. Creating soil, right?
Exactly, creating nutrient-rich soil amendment. They do it in a few ways.
I saw something about textile composting that caught my eye. Composting clothes.
Yeah, led by Erica Lee. It's not something you hear about often, but it makes sense, right?
Yep.
Recognizing that old fabrics, clothes, they're organic matter too.
Instead of landfilling them.
Right. So they're finding ways to break those down naturally and turn them back into soil.
And food waste. How are they tackling that? I saw something about grinding it.
They grind up the food waste first.
Why do that?
It dramatically increases the surface area to volume ratio. Think about, like, crushing ice cubes. They melt way faster.
Ah, okay. More surface for the microbes to work on.
Exactly. So it speeds up the decomposition process significantly, turns food scraps into compost much, much quicker.
Okay, that makes sense. But the project I really want to hear more about is their composting toilet, a water-free system. How on earth does that work?
It's fascinating, right? And the idea, you're right, came from visiting an eco-village in Israel.
So what does it look like? How is it set up?
Okay, so they have 2 stalls. Each one uses a big 55-gallon drum underneath. The clever part is the design inside the drum.
Which does what?
It separates the liquids, the urine, from the solids. There are aeration pipes and a kind of grid system.
Okay, separation is key. Then what happens to the pee and the poo, basically?
Well, it's all part of this neat closed loop. The urine is rich in nitrogen.
Right, good fertilizer.
Exactly. So it's drained off and used to fertilize their wildflower garden, which is part of a rewilding area.
Okay, so the liquid waste feeds the plants. What about the solids?
The solid stuff, the fecal matter, stays in the drum, and through natural composting over time, it breaks down into this really rich, earthy humus, like high-quality soil.
So you're literally turning human waste back into valuable soil, closing the loop.
Precisely. Returning it all to the natural cycle in a productive way.
Now, the big question people always have with these, what about the smell?
They specifically say there's no unpleasant odor because of the aeration in the process. It just smells like, well, soil.
Huh. And they have rules for using it, I bet.
Oh yeah, very specific. No inorganic stuff, no matches, cigarettes, diapers, regular trash. Only organic material, food scraps are okay, leaves, grass clippings, sawdust, wood chips, and of course, biodegradable toilet paper.
And instead of flushing, you add sawdust.
Sawdust or shredded leaves, yeah. That helps absorb moisture, balance the carbon-nitrogen ratio, and helps the composting process.
And ventilation.
Yep, there's a ventilation system to pull any potential odors away.
Yeah.
And the drums themselves, they get rotated out every 6 months to a year.
To let the material finish curing.
Exactly. It gives it time to fully break down. And showing their commitment, they're actually working on an ADA-compliant version of the composting toilet and the pathway to it.
That's great. Okay, moving on from toilets. Let's talk biodigesters, another cool piece of tech.
Definitely. This is another way they tackle organic waste, mostly food scraps.
And it turns it into energy.
Renewable energy, yeah.
Yeah.
In the form of biogas, and also a liquid fertilizer as a byproduct.
Biogas, like natural gas, can they actually use it?
Yeah, for simple things. They mentioned it can fuel a camp lantern, for example, a very direct local energy source from waste.
Cool. And they have a dragon biodigester. Sounds impressive.
I know, right? I picture something quite dramatic. Essentially, think of it like a big mechanical stomach. Bacteria inside break down the food waste anaerobically without oxygen and release methane, the biogas.
And I saw they're researching combining this with something called hugelkultur.
Yeah, hugelkultur, those raised garden beds made by burying logs and branches.
Yeah.
They're exploring if a combined system could maybe even work as an alternative to a traditional septic system.
Wow. That's really thinking differently.
It really is. Okay, so broader renewable energy, they're doing a lot there too, right? mostly solar.
Yeah, the place is apparently mostly solar-powered and not just one kind of setup.
Right, they've got panels mounted on the ground, on roofs, even on poles. A real mix,
And solar-powered golf carts. That sounds fun.
doesn't it?
Uh,
Apparently, students get involved in retrofitting electric golf carts to run just on solar panels they install themselves.
what a great hands-on project. So what's the scale of their solar operation?
The total system capacity is about 26.4 kilowatts. The panels and inverters are spread out by the carport, the pavilion, those pole mounts, the ground mount.
And I read something about optimizers on the pavilion system. What do those do?
Ah, yeah, optimizers are clever. Basically, each panel gets its own little manager. So if one panel gets shaded or isn't working at peak performance for some
It
reason,
doesn't drag the whole system down?
exactly. It stops that mismatch loss and helps maximize the energy output from the whole array.
Smart. And their goal is pretty ambitious, trying to offset all their electricity use.
Yeah, aiming for around 50,000 kilowatt hours of production a year. And they've already made a dent in emissions, avoided over 95,000 pounds of CO2 by going solar.
That's significant. And what was that about a mobile solar station?
Oh, this is really cool. Students designed and built what they're calling Florida's first mobile disaster resiliency solar power station.
Okay.
Picture this, two-wheeled carts, each with a 1 kilowatt solar roof. They get pulled by those solar golf carts, and they have a hybrid inverter and battery backup built in.
So like a mobile power source for emergencies.
Exactly. Power on wheels, ready to go where it's needed. Very innovative.
What about other renewables? Any wind power?
They do have a small wind turbine on site, but apparently it's not working right now.
Oh.
But they're looking into fixing it or maybe replacing it with newer, more efficient small turbines.
Yeah.
They mentioned a couple of models like PowerPod or Freya.
Is there enough wind there for that to be worthwhile?
It seems so. The wind data for Lando Lakes suggests small turbines could actually operate for a good chunk of the year. They even detailed one model, the Freya CW100, pretty compact, starts generating at low wind speeds.
Interesting. So they're exploring different angles.
Definitely. And it doesn't stop there. They also have a gravity battery project.
Like lifting weights.
Sort of, but with water. Demonstrating how you can store energy by pumping water uphill and then generate electricity when you let it flow back down.
Okay, simple physics, applied innovatively.
And even a handmade solar hot water system. Using the sun to heat water, specifically for washing cloth diapers, shows that sustainability can apply to even really specific, everyday needs.
It really covers a lot of ground. What about the ag side? Sustainable agriculture and ecology.
Oh yeah, that's a big focus too. They use aquaponics and hydroponics growing food without soil.
Right, fish, waste feeding plants, or just nutrient solutions.
Exactly. And they've even built their own aeroponic systems. That's where you spray the plant roots with nutrient mist. Allows for vertical farming.
So lots of experimentation in food production.
Totally. They're always tweaking things, tower gardens, different aquaponics setups like bell siphons, trying to figure out what works best there.
And traditional gardening, too.
Yep, green gardening, lasagna gardening, which is like layering compost materials, maintaining raised beds. They're involved in urban agriculture concepts and creating food forests.
Food forests, like edible landscapes.
Pretty much. Designing garden spaces that mimic natural ecosystems but produce food. Trees, shrubs, perennials, all working together.
And bees. I saw bees mentioned.
Yes, beekeeping.
Yeah.
And educating people about pollination, which is just so crucial. It all feels very connected.
It really does.
And a huge part of their ecology work is this rewilding project.
Rewilding, what does that involve?
It means actively removing invasive species plants that aren't native and kind of take over, and then replanting with native Florida species.
To restore the original habitat.
Exactly. Trying to bring back the natural wetland environment and attract native wildlife back to the area. They make a special point of planting native Florida milkweed.
Ah, for the monarch butterflies.
You got it. So important for monarchs. It's a very holistic approach, really restoring the whole ecosystem.
And all this work, they share it through community outreach and education, right?
Absolutely. That seems central to their mission. They offer tours for school groups, homeschoolers, scouts, you name it. And Dr. Cullen himself often leads them.
That must be fascinating, getting a tour from him.
I bet. They also run a summer camp for kids and those Saturday volunteer days we mentioned. Lots of ways for people to get directly involved.
And they host events, too.
Yeah, their calendar looks pretty busy. Things like America Recycles Day, Indigenous Peoples Day celebrations, even a Christmas event. Plus, they partner with local groups like the American Legion for fundraisers.
Shows those deep community roots.
For sure. And the university partnerships, especially with USF, help amplify their work and research. There's also this real focus on, like, intergenerational knowledge sharing, passing wisdom down.
Okay, so let's maybe zoom out a bit. What are the bigger ideas or philosophies guiding all this practical work? You mentioned nexus thinking.
Right next is thinking. It's about understanding the deep connections between critical systems, usually water, energy, and food,
Hmm.
the WEF
Mhm.
nexus.
Okay.
But Rosebud takes it a step further. They add ecology, making it the WEAFE nexus, or what they sometimes call more nexus.
And how does it connect to the no waste idea?
It connects directly. Because if you see water, energy, food, and ecology as interconnected, you start to see how the output or waste from one system can actually be a valuable input for another. It helps eliminate the concept of waste altogether.
Ah, okay. Everything is a resource somewhere in the nexus.
Precisely. And that leads into another really interesting concept they champion, the vortical economy.
Vertical, like a vortex,
Yeah.
as opposed to a circular economy.
Exactly. Or sometimes they call it a helical economy. The idea is that just circulating materials, like in a simple circular economy, might not be enough. It might just maintain the status quo or even contribute to entropy, things breaking down.
So the vertical idea implies upward movement.
Yes. Upward progress,
Hmm.
continuous improvement, creating more value, solving problems, moving towards negentropy, building things up, making things better rather than just looping. Their motto is, let's twist.
Huh. So it's not just reusing a bottle, it's maybe turning that bottle into something better or using the process to clean something else up.
That's the kind of thinking, yeah.
Yeah.
Progress, not just cycles.
Where does that idea draw inspiration from?
It looks to nature biomimicry, thinking about efficient natural networks, like how fungi mycelium connects things, or neural networks in our brains, how systems collaborate and create positive feedback loops.
And it sounds like they have a pretty optimistic view of resourcefulness.
They do. They seem to challenge those old Malthusian ideas about population inevitably outstripping resources. Their perspective is more that human ingenuity and innovation, especially working with nature, can overcome those limits.
That's empowering.
Yeah. And they apply this to cities, too, talking about transforming the urban metabolism,
Meaning?
breaking down that traditional split where cities produce waste and rural areas produce resources. They want to eliminate that metabolic rift by viewing urban waste streams as valuable resources right where they are. They point to examples like the Zabaleen garbage collectors in Cairo who built an entire economy around recycling.
So it's about local solutions creating wider impact. Think globally, act locally.
Definitely. And the way they develop ideas is interesting, too. They use something called the meutic method.
Meutic method. What's that?
It sounds like it's less about debate or proving someone wrong and more about collaborative questioning and exploration, asking questions together to build ideas, fostering innovation through shared discovery rather than competition.
It sounds like a really positive and, well, fertile environment for ideas at Rosebud Continuum.
It really does. What they're doing there, the range of solutions they're exploring and actually implementing, it's pretty remarkable.
Absolutely. We've definitely uncovered some really inspiring stuff in this deep dive, that composting toilet design, the trashcrete art and potential, that whole vertical economy concept. Quite a lot to think about.
Yeah, definitely some aha moments there. Hopefully exploring all this has left you, our listeners, feeling more inspired by what's possible with sustainability rather than, just overwhelmed by the problems.
Right. And maybe with that in mind, here's a final thought for you to mull over. Think about the principles and the actual innovations happening at Rosebud. Is there even a small piece of that approach, that no waste thinking or that collaborative spirit, that you could apply in your own life or maybe spark something in your community?
Because every step, no matter how small it seems, really does contribute to building a more sustainable future.
Definitely. We'd encourage you to check out the Rosebud Continuum's website, or maybe just look into what sustainability initiatives are happening closer to home. You might be surprised at the ingenuity you find right in your own backyard.